songs like Neon Moon and Boot Scoot. And,
Oh, yeah.
next album, Hard Working Man, and Used to Be Mine. Ronnie just had written all these great songs by itself, which, now I can't even tell you.
What if one of country music's most legendary duos was about to take their final bow? And not by choice. Brooks and Dunn just dropped heartbreaking news, and Ronnie Dunn's shocking diagnosis changes everything. Fans are stunned, but no one saw this twist coming. Why now? And what does this mean for their legacy? Stick around, because what you're about to hear will leave you rethinking everything you thought you knew about their goodbye. The night began like a dream for fans of Brooks and Dunn, a crowd buzzing with excitement at Gainbridge Fieldhouse on April 3, 2025. They came for the hits, the nostalgia, and the electrifying connection only this duo can spark. For a while, everything delivered. Flashing lights, roaring cheers, and that familiar twang that brings back memories of long road trips and backyard barbecues. But gradually, that energy started to shift. It was subtle at first. A little less pep, a little more pause. The kind of thing you don't notice unless you're really paying attention. And then, just like that, the show took a turn no one expected. Right in the middle of the high-octane encore, during the crowd-favorite Boot Scootin' Boogie, something deeply unsettling happened. Ronnie Dunn, the voice that defined a generation of country fans, stepped back from the mic and looked out over the crowd. He told them, "Sing it if you know it," in a tone that sounded almost final. People thought it was just stage showmanship at first, but then he made a quiet hand gesture toward Kix, like passing a silent baton. Then came the chest tap. Not dramatic, just real. His face held a mix of exhaustion and quiet resignation. He shook his head slightly, then turned and slowly walked off stage. No spotlight exit, no fireworks, just a soft wave and the kind of farewell that doesn't need words. And just like that, a moment that was supposed to be a celebration turned into something that felt like goodbye. What do you do when the music keeps playing but your heart tells you something's ending? That moment was more than just a hiccup in the performance. It was a message, a subtle but powerful sign that something bigger was going on. Throughout the night, sharp-eyed fans noticed the clues. Ronnie wasn't his vibrant self. During Rock My World, Little Country Girl, he actually sat down mid-performance. For someone known to command the stage with an effortless kind of swagger, that was jarring. Social media lit up with concern, fans sharing clips, pointing out how his voice cracked, how he looked winded, even dazed at moments. One fan posted, "He looked like he was struggling to breathe, and it broke my heart." And just like that, concern replaced celebration. Yet through it all, Kix Brooks didn't miss a beat. The show had to go on, and Kix made sure it did, with heart, with grit, and with a quiet dignity that only comes from decades of friendship and shared spotlight. He didn't try to cover it up, he just held the moment together, finishing the show with a strength that fans will never forget. That's the mark of true partnership, a brotherhood built over years of shared highs and hard miles. But fans knew something wasn't right. The questions started pouring in. Is Ronnie okay? Is this it for Brooks and Dunn? Was this more than a one-night fluke? The silence that followed only fueled the uncertainty. Then came a short statement from their team to USA Today. Ronnie wasn't feeling well due to illness, but the Saturday show went on as planned. On the surface, that might have calmed a few nerves, but for those who saw it unfold in real time, who felt that shift in the air, and saw the look in Ronnie's eyes, that explanation didn't feel like enough. It felt like the tip of something deeper, something unspoken. And here's where the story turns even more poignant. Because what the public didn't see, what was happening behind the scenes, was a series of battles Ronnie had been fighting quietly, without fuss or spotlight. For months, he'd been facing real health challenges. In early March 2025, he was hit hard, not with just one illness but two, COVID and strep throat at the same time. A double hit to someone whose life revolves around a finely tuned voice. It wasn't just a week in bed with soup and reruns. This was serious. He was forced to rest completely for nearly 2 weeks. No rehearsals, no singing, just silence. His doctors gave him antibiotics and steroids, trying to get him show ready. But the virus didn't play fair. It settled deep in his lungs. Even by late March, he was still experiencing breathing problems. In a candid moment during an interview with Country Music Weekly, Ronnie admitted, "I'm still fighting some respiratory issues from COVID." You could hear the frustration between the lines, that longing to bounce back, to just be himself again. But his body wasn't cooperating. And just when you thought that was enough for anyone to handle, here comes another twist. Rewind a few months to December 2024, and Ronnie's recovering from major knee surgery. Not just a tweak or minor injury. We're talking about a complete ACL tear from a skiing mishap in Colorado. Classic Ronnie, pushing limits even on vacation. He went in for full knee replacement, then endured 8 intense weeks of rehab. For a performer who spends hours on his feet, commanding massive stages, that kind of recovery is a steep climb. So when he stepped on stage in Indianapolis that night, it wasn't just a man trying to sing a song. It was a legend trying to fight through the weight of illness, injury, and everything in between, because he didn't want to let his fans down. And in that moment when he waved goodbye mid-song, he wasn't giving up. He was giving everything he had left. That's what made it unforgettable. That's what etched it into the hearts of every single person in that arena. Because sometimes the most powerful moment in a concert isn't the pyrotechnics or the final note. It's the silence that follows a whispered goodbye. Ronnie didn't need to say the words. The music, the gesture, the stillness, it all said more than a statement ever could. And now fans everywhere are asking the hardest question: is this really the end? Or is it just a chapter closing gently, respectfully, with love? No one knows for sure. But one thing's certain: Brooks and Dunn gave us more than hits. They gave us memories. And this will be one of the ones we never forget. He may have limped onto that stage, but Ronnie Dunn's presence still carried that unshakable energy that's defined him for decades. And even with the weight of rehab slowing him down, he pushed forward, driven by something deeper than showbiz, something rooted in loyalty. You'd think recovering from major knee surgery would be enough to keep most artists off the road, but not Ronnie. That classic cowboy determination, it runs bone deep. He refused to cancel a single stop on the Reboot 2 tour. Instead, he performed night after night, leaning on stage risers when he needed support, hiding the pain behind his signature shades, and a grit that wouldn't quit. And here's where it gets even more raw. Fans began noticing subtle signs, the kind only true followers pick up on. The way he favored his right leg, how his usual confident strut had turned into something a little more cautious. It was all there if you looked closely. But beyond the physical toll, something else began to change. Something even more personal. That voice, Ronnie's voice, the one that could stretch a note into pure emotion and silence a stadium, began to show signs of wear. Coaches and critics started whispering about his breathing, his phrasing, how the notes didn't always land the way they used to. And for fans who grew up with Brooks and Dunn as the backdrop to their lives, hearing Ronnie fight to push through a chorus hit differently. It wasn't just nostalgia fading. It was a living legend adapting in real time, rearranging classic songs to suit a changing range, softening the edges of tracks once belted out with ease. The sound team started adjusting live mixes too, giving Ronnie room to sing without overexerting. These weren't dramatic changes, but they were felt. And yet, even as all these adjustments were being made behind the scenes, Ronnie never stepped out with excuses or explanations. He just kept going. That quiet perseverance, that's what made his next move so unexpected. During a stop in Indianapolis, something happened that no one saw coming. Mid-show, Ronnie motioned to his guitarist, gave a small wave, and disappeared off stage. Just like that. No announcement. No drama. Just gone. It wasn't like him. And within minutes, fans were buzzing. Was it exhaustion? Something worse? You could almost hear the collective gasp across the venue. And by the time phones were out and the clips hit social media, the questions started swirling. For longtime fans, that moment wasn't just concerning. It was gutting. Because Ronnie wasn't just some celebrity to them. He was the voice of countless first dances, road trip anthems, and heartache remedies. Social media didn't spiral into gossip. It transformed into something far more touching. Brooks and Dunn's Instagram page quickly filled with love notes disguised as comments. Fans weren't asking for refunds. They were offering prayers. "Sending strength, Ronnie. Hope you're okay, cowboy." The messages kept flooding in, one after another, echoing like a chorus of concern. It was one of those rare moments where the internet turned tender. And just when you thought the outpouring couldn't get more emotional, fans who were actually at the show began sharing their own accounts. One woman wrote how thrilled she was to finally see them live, calling it a dream come true, even though she could tell something wasn't quite right near the end. "Still the best night ever," she added, followed by a flood of heart emojis. These weren't complaints. They were thank yous. Words filled with admiration for Ronnie's effort, his courage, his refusal to quit. And it wasn't just Instagram feeling the weight of the moment. Over on TikTok, things exploded. One clip from radio host Matt Malone captured Ronnie telling the crowd to keep singing, then silently handing things over to his band as he exited the stage. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was soft, almost protective, like he didn't want fans to panic, and maybe that made it even more powerful. The video spread like wildfire, racking up over 86,000 likes, and within hours, TikTok had turned into an unofficial support group. Hashtags like "Pray for Ronnie" and "Ronnie Strong" popped up, connecting strangers who had one thing in common: a deep love for the man and his music. Another video surfaced showing Ronnie earlier in the show, sitting on the edge of the stage. His discomfort was visible. Small shifts in posture, that tightness in his expression. He wasn't himself, and you could feel the weight of it. Still, fans didn't turn on him. If anything, it deepened their connection. People started sharing old concert memories, stories of meeting him backstage, tales of how one song got them through a rough patch. There was no pity, just profound respect. Ronnie's quiet exit reminded everyone of something we often forget in the age of constant content. Our heroes are human too. But then, almost like a plot twist, came the first signs of hope. One fan chimed in, saying Ronnie performed the very next night in Peoria and crushed it. "He's fine," the comment read, like a lifeline tossed into choppy waters. And it worked. That small sentence became the thread fans clung to, proof that maybe this wasn't the beginning of the end. Maybe he just needed a moment to catch his breath. Still, not everyone could breathe easy. Some started spinning rumors, asking if Brooks and Dunn were done for good. Others wondered if this was Ronnie's way of saying goodbye without actually saying it. The speculation got wild, but underneath it all was one simple truth. People were scared, not for the band, for him, for the man who's been showing up for them since the 90s, long before social media and viral videos. Ronnie Dunn wasn't just another performer. He was the guy whose voice showed up when life got messy, when love hurt, when joy needed a soundtrack. And that's what made this moment so different. It wasn't just about a missed note or a shortened set. It was about legacy, about love, about what happens when the person behind the mic suddenly becomes vulnerable in front of us all. Maybe it was just a rough night. Maybe it was his body finally demanding rest. But whatever it was, the fans saw it, and they responded not with disappointment, but with grace. Because Ronnie Dunn isn't just part of country music history. He is country music history. And when history falters, people notice. They rally, they remember, and most of all, they hope. The world seemed to hold its breath when whispers of Ronnie Dunn's health scare rippled across the country music scene. One of the most enduring voices in American music suddenly went quiet, and fans immediately feared the worst. Headlines screamed speculation, and online forums lit up with theories about Brooks and Dunn calling it quits. But the truth? Far from a farewell, this was more of a reset, a powerful reminder that even legends need to pause. And sometimes, those pauses make the music hit even deeper. After their show in Indianapolis, something felt off. Ronnie's voice, usually soaring and strong, wavered. He stepped back from the spotlight, and within hours, fans were in a frenzy. Yet beneath the panic was something more revealing: unwavering love and loyalty. Because when someone like Ronnie Dunn stumbles, you realize just how much he's meant to so many. But the storm of worry quickly gave way to relief. The duo's team released a statement that cleared the air. Ronnie was facing a respiratory issue, not a life-ending crisis. And just like that, hearts steadied and hopes returned. Isn't it something how fast our emotions swing when it comes to icons who've become part of our lives? Ronnie's taking it slow now, resting, recovering, and rebuilding the strength he poured out on stage for years. It's the kind of recovery story that leaves you both relieved and reflective. Fans who feared an ending were gifted something else: perspective. Because here's the truth: this wasn't a goodbye. This was a recalibration. A small detour, not the end of the road. They adjusted the tour schedule, made breathing room, literally, for Ronnie, and brought in fresh voices to support his own. Not to replace, but to lift. And that move? That spoke volumes about the brotherhood between Ronnie and Kix Brooks. No ego, no drama. Just two men who've shared a lifetime of stages, knowing exactly when to step up and when to step back. Which brings us to something equally important. What a life that's been. From humble beginnings to selling out arenas, Ronnie Dunn has built a legacy that's not just about music, but about smart, strategic growth. Behind the cowboy boots and worn guitar straps lies a man who understood the business side of fame. Over the years, Ronnie's built a portfolio that speaks louder than any chart topper. He's owned a fleet of luxury vehicles, including a rare Bentley Continental GT, and a sleek Range Rover Autobiography, balancing utility with elegance. His wrist has often featured timepieces like the Rolex Daytona and the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, quiet symbols of his success. But perhaps most impressive is his real estate game: sprawling ranches in Tennessee, a high-end penthouse in Nashville, and a secluded getaway in Colorado. Private jet charters are just another Tuesday for Ronnie, often used for quick jumps between tour stops and personal retreats. But he didn't stop there. Ronnie made calculated moves into business, from owning shares in tech startups to launching his own music label and dabbling in whiskey branding. He's collaborated with brands that align with his image, maintaining authenticity while expanding reach. His career has been protected by robust insurance policies, everything from vocal cord coverage to tour interruption protection. That's the kind of foresight only a seasoned pro brings to the table. And the lesson? It's not about how fast you burn, it's about how wisely you build. Ronnie Dunn didn't just make money, he preserved it. He reinvested in himself, never leaning too heavily on fame alone. The takeaway is clear: fame fades, but smart choices don't. Through all this, one thing stands out: Ronnie and Kix are far from finished. They're not chasing the highs of yesterday. They're rewriting the playbook on longevity. Sure, the pace has changed. Gone are the 100-city tours in 100 days. Now it's about meaningful shows, quality over quantity, and giving their audience everything, just at a rhythm that sustains. That shift is powerful in itself, because it proves you don't have to vanish to evolve. You don't have to leave the stage to stay legendary. There's beauty in pacing yourself and still commanding the crowd. The recent changes, shortened sets, strategic staging, added harmonies, are more than logistics. They're proof that Brooks and Dunn have matured into artists who care about the long game. Artists who know that it's not about how many shows you do, it's about how deeply each one resonates. And maybe that's why fans rallied so hard when Ronnie stepped back. Not because they feared losing a performer, but because they felt connected to a man who never faked it. A man who gave everything every time. That connection doesn't come from hit songs, it comes from heart. And Ronnie's got it in spades. As Brooks and Dunn gear up for the rest of the Reboot 2 tour, fans aren't just excited, they're grateful. Grateful that they still get to witness greatness. That despite rumors and health concerns, the boots are still walking, the guitars are still blazing, and the stage lights are still burning bright. So if you're wondering what's next, know this: Brooks and Dunn aren't slowing down because they have to. They're choosing to adapt, evolve, and keep showing up in ways that matter most. Ronnie Dunn is healing, but his spirit? Stronger than ever. Kix Brooks remains the ever-loyal partner, steady at his side. Together, they're proving that legends don't retire. They reignite. Thanks for watching. If this journey moved you, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And for more untold stories behind the spotlight, stick around. The next one might just be more surprising than the last.